Welcome. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Anna Gata, a true force in the mortgage industry, with nearly 2 decades of expertise. At the young age of 20, Anna fearlessly launched her own mortgage company, all while juggling beautiful chaos of motherhood with three little ones. What captivated me about Anna is her raw authenticity on social media. She fearlessly confronts industry issues, shedding light on both victories and challenges in our community and industry. Her boldness resonates with me, as I admire her dedication to honesty and advocacy. She's a working mom of three, striving to find harmony between her career ambitions, family life, and life of philanthropy. Welcome,
Yes.
Anna Jan. Thank you for taking my invitation. It's a
Thank you for having me.
it's a the pleasure is all mine.
A question.
It's very exciting. So, can you give us a little bit of background how you got started in the mortgage industry, please?
I got started at a very young age. I had to get out of law school in order for me to work. I had to support my mom and help the family at the time. And I got hired by a real estate and a mortgage company as a receptionist. And then, long story short, 6 months down the line, I had more transactions on a board than any of the loan officers and realtors in there. And I just fell in love with the industry because it had a lot to do with law, and every transaction for me was like a puzzle, like a
Mhm.
solving a case for me. So it was really, really exciting. So I just fell in love with the process of it and just helping people out and turning people's dreams into reality, which was a lot of fun. So
Now that you say it, it sounds like the perfect picture of in order, but I'm sure it wasn't like that,
no,
right? So let's go back to why did you have to quit law school? How many years were you in law school?
I just barely started. I finished high school 1 year early. I
Hmm.
started college, and then right before I was supposed to get transferred, a few months into it, I had to quit because my mom lost her manufacturing company. It was difficult times, and a few months into it, she had to go bankrupt basically,
Hmm.
and we lost everything. So I had to start working to support my family basically to help out, and I would not change anything about it because I think it's the best thing ever. And I was able to utilize what I love, which is the law, and implement it in a field where I'm able to sit down with lawyers, sit down with doctors, sit down with everybody,
Hmm.
regular business people, everyday people. You know what I mean? Like it's just worked out just perfectly fine.
But at the
So
time, I'm sure it felt like the world is falling apart. And
it was, but coming from being a kid that grew up in a collapse of Soviet Union and Armenia going independent basically, and surviving a war and seeing all that, living without electricity and kind of realistic food in the early
Mhm.
90s and late 80s in Armenia, and then being for 2.5 years being without my parents because my mom came to the United States in early
Mhm.
90s for a better future for us. For me, adapting to change has always been my superpower, I guess I
Mhm.
want to call that. So I learned how to adapt to things very, very quickly and very young. So any difficult situation for me is just another stepping stool. So
Really
yeah,
interesting.
I don't look at it as difficult. It is what it is. We just have to deal with it.
Okay, so you're a realist. You just pick up where you're at. I gotta figure this out.
Yeah,
Basically, I gotta
100%.
figure this out.
Yeah.
Okay, so you drop out of college. You go work where again?
Heritage Financial Group
Okay.
and Realty Net.
What were you doing in the
I was a
beginning?
receptionist. I was
Okay.
just there. Our rent was 900 something dollars. I remember I used to make $800 cash a month. And I used to work like there is no tomorrow, like 26 hours a day.
Hmm.
There were times when I would literally just go home, sleep for an hour, change, and then come back to the
Really?
office. Yeah. So, but I saw the opportunity. What I love about our industry in real
Hmm.
estate and mortgage as well is that you control your own destiny, kind of a deal.
Yes.
You control how much you want to make. You control what you want to do, how you want to do.
Hmm.
Everything is in your own hands. And
Absolutely.
the type of a person that I am with my personality, I'm a workaholic, and so I don't need anybody to tell me like, oh, you need to be here and for you to do
Yeah, you're
this.
just wired like that.
Yeah, yeah. So it was like perfect opportunity. So great, I get to control my income. Great, I get to help people while I'm doing it. Great, sign me
Okay.
up. I'm there.
So what happened when you decided to open your own mortgage? Because I the rumors are you opened your own mortgage company at the age of 20. What's that like?
So, after like 2 years working with Heritage Financial Group and Realty Net, the owner was moving to Moreno Valley, Riverside County.
Hmm.
And he's like, Anna, let's go. Come with me. I'm like, I can't do that. There's no way. Like,
Hmm.
we have so much happening here. There's no way I could come. So either it was for me to go work for somebody else or just go on my own.
Hmm.
So I was like, let's
So
do this.
going on your own at the age of 20, I mean, were people taking you seriously, Anna?
People were at that time already kind of yes, because I already had like 2.5 years almost in under my belt, so to speak.
Hmm.
But it was still not as not to the point where I wanted to be. Let's just put it that way. But one of my main things when I started, it was like, okay, my goal was like it was nowadays it's much different. You have a lot more women involved or young girls
In the
in the
industry.
industry. Yeah, back in the days it was complete opposite. It was like 95% over 95% male dominated, and you didn't have anybody under the age of 30. Everybody was like over 30 in their 40s or 50s, and
Seasoned.
oh, seasoned. They've been in the industry for a very long time. So as a 18, 19-year-old kid that shows up there, I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to make sure? First of all, I'm a young girl. I get that. I understand. I never wanted to play that game. I'm a girl, you're a guy, you're a man and woman, all that stuff. No, I was like, I understand people are going to take me a little bit different in the beginning, but once I leave that meeting or leave the office or wherever, leave the room that I was in, I'm going to make sure they know who I am. So I made sure that I know guidelines, I know rules, I know regulations like back of my hand. So that was my um,
Superpower.
superpower, and that was my, I guess I could call it a game changer for me personally.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's how I overcame that portion of it.
Right. Yeah, it's like being a real estate agent but not knowing the contract or how to go around the contract or,
Are
the
you talking
rules.
about 90% of realtors right now out there?
Right, exactly. It's like, and I
Still
love
this
what you just
problem.
said. So knowing all those guidelines and the rules that sets you apart. That just shows you got the brains, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%, 100%. And people don't understand it. They think it's the key to the game is to get a client.
Hmm.
It's not. The
So
key
what
to
is
the
it for you?
game is to make sure that client that you close that transaction for is not 100%, 1000% satisfied. Because that's the only person that is going to get you more clients. Not the realtor, not the escrow officer,
Word
not
of
the
mouth.
CPA, not notary. That's the only person that is going to get you a client for the rest of your life is that client.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah,
It's like if you provide an excellent service and you go above and beyond and you deliver, I mean, why not? Why wouldn't they refer you? Absolutely.
100%, 100%.
And
Yeah,
it's good because you get to focus on that, the quality of work, instead of worrying about the noise and I need this and referral this. And you just focus on the client. And I think we're in the business of service. So that's our job, basically, to provide
100% with you
100%
on that.
service.
It is our job. It is our responsibility. But unfortunately, I think it's always been a fight that I've been fighting, I guess 20 some plus years that I've been in the industry, that number one focus should be the client. And I never understood the fact that it was from the loan officer perspective, it's been the realtor. I'm like, but that doesn't make any sense. Like the client is the one that pays you. And why are we focusing on the realtor? Why are we trying to make sure that the realtor is happy? For what purpose? I don't understand.
To get clients. They think you
But
have,
that's not how it works. Who refers that client to the realtor? The client, right? So if I'm focusing on the realtor, that means you're giving your power to the realtor. So the client refers the client to the realtor. Now the realtor has all the power. The work that you've done just went to waste because the realtor can decide who to send the client to when you're the one who's actually doing the work.
right. You can make the deal or break the deal. So, as a realtor, I do my part, but if the loan officer is not doing her part and delivering that loan, we don't have a transaction. We don't close.
100%.
So,
Yes.
for me, when I have a client, I make sure I match them with the right lender that I know is going to able to do the job
Job.
based on their scenario, based on where they are with their
Mm-hmm.
finances, um, the programs that will match better. So for me, the deal maker is the lender,
Hmm.
so it's a partnership. It can't be
It is a
anything
partnership.
else.
It is a partnership. That's what I never understood. Why it's always been, oh, what can you do for me to give you clients? I'm like, no, it's not that way. It's like what we can both of us do to better service the client. Let's focus. I think the shift. It's time to change that shift. And I think with social media, that time has come. I think people are realizing more and more that the focus is the client. It's not the other way around, and which I'm very, very excited for. So
What gravitated me to you was the bold personality that you have, where you go live and you start just what's the best way to describe it? Like,
just say it. It's okay. You're not just say it.
what's the nice way to say it? But no, no, you say exactly what's on your mind. You're like, what are you doing, people? Like, calm down, like, get yourself together. I'm like, what did she just say that? I love that because I feel like we're always trying to be polite and we're always trying to be nice, but somebody has to get on stories or live and just say, you can't do this. This is against the law. And I love that. I love the boldness. I think that's how you stand up for our community. You're a good voice to have. I think it's very
Thank you.
healthy
I
to have that
appreciate that.
voice.
I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. It's funny that all these years I was in Michigan a couple of weeks ago, and United Wholesale Lender, again, the top nation's number one wholesale lender. And I met with the owner, Matt, and their senior VP of sales and marketing, Anthony. And they did have a weekly sales meeting that is a podcast over throughout the nation every Wednesday. And prior to that, there was a broker owner class, over 100 brokers in there, and they were talking about clients and back and forth, and how to do to get more business and so on. And they were showing this old videos, and it was Matt, it was Amazon Bezos was his last name? I don't
Yeah,
even know. Yeah.
that's it.
And then we have Starbucks owners, this, that they were talking about. Steve Jobs was on there too. And they were showing that how they were talking about they're in a business of people. They're not in a business of any kind of, service or selling product. They're in a business of people. So as the video ended, and then the guy turns around, Anthony goes, so market to your realtors, market to your. I was like, hold on a second. I raised my hand. I'm like, hold on a second. You guys just showed us a video of your CEO and all these other big companies, CEOs, talking about they're in a business of people, and our client is the borrower, and then you're telling just loan officers to go market to the realtors. And he was like, okay, I'm done. You could just drop the mic. And he's like, we're done with this meeting. And the next day, he goes on that sales meeting and he's all like, all this time we've been doing this wrong. It's like, I've never seen the whole, like, everybody started like applauding and so on. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that it's an affirmation for me all these years that I worked so hard to make sure that I stand for what's right. And there were so many days and nights and so on where I could have gone in a lot more different places a long time ago, with success and everything else. But because I stood up what's right and I wanted to make sure that I do it with integrity, it took me a little bit longer to get there. And it was a very lonely road, but now I'm at the point where I'm actually getting recognized for something that I did, which is, I think it's extremely, extremely important and very powerful for everybody else out there who is fighting to do what's right, especially nowadays in our society. It's really hard to, stand up
Have
alone.
values, have principles.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's extremely difficult to do, and it's a very lonely road. People need to understand that, but it is doable at the end of the day, which is really, really nice. So just wanted
Absolutely.
to,
Um, you're a mom of three.
yes.
Yes, and I connect with you on that term too. So tell me, when you're a workaholic and you're always on the go, 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 how is it like juggling work and life balance?
See, I think we all been lied to as far as when they say there's a balance. I don't think there is balance. There's no such a thing as
I
balance.
agree.
I think it's a big, somebody came up with it probably at one point,
We're
and everybody,
chasing it.
yeah,
It doesn't
because you're
exist.
chasing some balance that doesn't exist in reality. So that's what I came finding out. And I realized that you just have to pay attention to, you just have to be so alert and aware in your own life and in your kids' life, your family, it's your immediate family, your friends, and so on, that you have to understand what needs your attention at that
Mm-hmm.
moment and kind of adjust
Right.
accordingly.
Right.
Okay, so if
So you give attention where the attention is needed
needed, yes,
and being able to shift. So if workload is a lot, if work needs your attention, obviously that's where we go and then you hope for that support.
yes.
So who's helping you? Who helps you?
With
With
personal, or we're talking with
with
kids. My
kids.
mom, and my husband Ron is, they're absolutely amazing. My mom is she's a rock. So she's the one that, picks him up from school. She's the one that takes Miles to practice and so on. She's the one that does in the morning. It's us morning, getting them ready, dropping them off, this and that, and then after school, it's my mom. And one thing, as a kid growing up with such a difficult childhood, I had a great childhood, but at the same time, it was very difficult because imagine back in early 90s, I grew up without my mom for two and a
Yeah,
half years and
because she
without
was
my
here
dad
in the
because she was
States.
here. And it's funny, my son, the two of them, they were misbehaving, Miles and Charlie, yesterday. So we said no technology, that's it, like you guys are done, we took away all their
Devices.
devices and so on. So, and he's like, what you go, what, I'm sure you had TV to watch when you were 10.
Oh, no.
i'm like I'm like, Miles, you know what I used to do at 10? I'm like, here, let me tell you this. And I told him a couple of things, and he's like standing there looking at me. I'm like, so be careful next time you ask the question, and be careful what you're gonna hear the answer is going. He's like, what, you were without Babo for 2.5 years? I'm like, yeah. So, and then one thing I realized is, because of how I grew up, I always taught him to be independent, because again, you never know what life might bring. As much as, we're always there and so on, like we did in Armenia, nobody knew that one day that's what's going to happen and all these families were going to,
Drift
fall
apart
apart,
and
drift apart, and so on.
change
So,
countries.
yeah. So I want him to be independent. So that helps out a lot as well when it comes down to, working. I travel a lot to with work and so on, but we're very, very tight where we know we got each other's back and we protect each other and we care for each other, and one takes over the other. So it's really, really important to teach them that at a very young age.
You're
And it's
very,
okay to be without mom.
yeah.
I wanted them to know that because it was very traumatic for me.
It's okay to know to be without mom, but to know that she's always
Oh
there.
yeah, 100%.
Absolutely, right? It's
100%.
different.
100%.
What
Yeah.
about mom guilt? Because a lot of
Oh,
women struggle between work, life, right? And then like they want perfection, which doesn't exist. And so I personally always have mom guilt when I'm working too much or when I'm away or and then when I'm home and I'm kind of miserable that I'm home, right? Because I want to go work. So what is mom guilt like for you? How do you manage that?
I don't think we could ever manage it kind of a way. I think it's always going to be there. I don't think, I've tried a lot of things as far as how to deal with it, so to speak. But I realize, especially when you have more than one kid, it's like, okay, you spend a little bit more time with this one, and then, oh my God, what the other one? And then you try to, and then obviously you have a husband too, you have, friends,
Social
mom,
life.
like
You want
it's
to eat
just,
clean
yeah, I
and you
know.
want to exercise and
Yeah.
so,
So
yeah.
it's a lot. But as far as the mom guilt goes, I personally haven't learned how to deal with it. I just, whenever it just comes up, and it's a few times a day minimum, on daily basis, I have to remind myself, like, Anna, okay, you got this, take care of this, you're taking care of this, you're doing this, you're doing that. And my daughter is old enough, so I just kind of like talk to her as well. And I'm like,
She
so
helps you cover things a little bit maybe with the kids.
she does, but also she has a very interesting ability to listen,
Mm-hmm.
and also she's able to focus me very quickly. Like, she
Mm-hmm.
brings me back to focus.
Oh, good.
She's very, very good at that. So I have that support
That's
uh,
wonderful.
in regards to this. I can't, she has a lot to do with it. She might not even notice it. She might not even know that
Mm-hmm.
much, I might just go, just give her a hug and say, I love you. So if I'm like, sorry, baby, I know, busy. She's like, I haven't seen you. She's like, I feel like I
Yeah.
haven't seen you this whole week. I'm like, I know, baby, I'm sorry. She's like, yeah, yeah, mom, I got you. Don't worry about it. It's all cool.
And that comes up a lot.
Yeah, that comes up a lot. Just simple that, just okay, fine. Like it's
Yeah.
okay. We're good.
No, I hear
We're
you.
good.
I hear you.
Yeah.
It's a thing I don't think it's ever gonna go away, and we do our best.
And one other trick that I recently started doing, I started to and I have to do more. I have to go more into depth and to detail more. That I started I like I'm trying to manage my schedule that I have my family stuff in there, like kids this, kids that. So I'm trying to get the, Miles's practices
Yeah.
maybe once a week. I take him, you know what I mean? My husband Ron picks him up and so on. We're trying to incorporate that as well, but we want to put that in there and then build everything else
Mm-hmm.
around it versus
Absolutely.
the other way
So you
around.
treat it like an appointment.
Yeah,
If it's on your calendar, you treat it like an
yeah.
appointment versus I'll get to it if I can.
If I can, yeah.
No, if
Yeah.
it's very important for me to be to my son's games. My husband does that all the time. He's always there for him,
Mm-hmm.
but I make sure there are days that I show up
Uh-huh.
because it's on a different level.
Yeah, when mom comes,
It's
yeah,
different. Mom
definitely, yeah.
records, mom is
Yeah.
cheering on, mom is loud, mom is, giving that encouragement. So you have to prioritize those things, and that's more important to me than anything else, I think. Like, but when you have a company and you have these people that are working for you, it's different. Being in a leadership role is completely different. So talk about that a little bit.
Um, it's difficult to like last week I had such a difficult week. Um, and it was one of those weeks when probably like 2 hours of sleep every night. It was one of those weeks. And it happens. You go through them, and that's where, that's where leaders versus, regular. I think that's where the entrepreneurship spirit comes in. People, I think the word entrepreneurship is so misused so much. People don't understand in reality what it means.
Right. What do you
Um,
mean by that? Like, elaborate a little bit. Where's the
because
misconception?
um, the misconception is that, especially with the content idea of nowadays, people think just because they shoot something and they put it out there, they're like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. Do you even know what an entrepreneur is? Do you even know how much it takes and what it takes for you to be one? Like you want to run like on a 2 weeks of 2 hours sleep or an hour and a half sleep every night, and when everything hurts and everybody's falling apart, and you're the one that needs to put everybody back together. You have to make decisions left and right. Everybody's calling out your name. At work, everybody says Anna. When you open the door, walk into your house, everybody says mom. Like, how are you able to handle all that stuff? And there's absolutely no time for you, and you just have to, you're the decision maker. It's like when you do good, everybody says, oh, it's everyone, everybody did an amazing job. When you do bad, they say, oh my God, it's Anna. It's like, how do you deal with that? How do you cope with that? And that's where your entrepreneurship spirit comes in, because it is a very lonely world, extremely lonely. People don't understand that. They all see the glitz and glams of it, but the hard work, what you do behind the scene, and the dark hours and the late hours and sacrificing and all that stuff, none of that stuff people see. That's what an entrepreneurship is. Entrepreneurship is not what you see, the glitz at the end of the glamorous stuff at the
Yeah.
end,
You have no idea what you get into until you get
oh,
into it.
100%. It's about failing. It's about rebuilding yourself, readjusting. It's all about that.
Reset, start
100%.
as
Yeah.
many time as you need, right? But don't give up.
100%. There's no such a thing as like falling, basically. It's just that I look at everything as a learning and a stepping stool to be, just
Rest, reset, go.
not even
Rest.
rest. Who has time
Who
to
has
rest?
time
I
to
think
rest?
I think we
Oh,
have time
well,
to sleep whenever we will pass to the other life. We go there. I think yeah, no, life is too short, I think, to
so what do you do for self-care?
nothing at this point. Nothing. That's one thing. That's one thing that I struggle right now, which is one thing I realized back in the days, few years, my whole life I've been very active. Yoga, I mean, Pilates, exercise, very, very active since I was a kid. I used to play basketball too, and so on. But lately, for self care, it's really interesting. And I started to, I've enjoyed this, but lately it's been even more. I like gatherings, like I'm talking about like family and friends. I like gatherings. I like watching people getting together, getting to know each other better, spending time together, making jokes,
Yeah.
having fun. And I catch myself just kind of like stepping back a little and just observing all of that. It gives me so much joy and happiness. It gives me so much strength. Um, that it's like it feeds my soul kind of a deal.
Is it because you've missed out for a while? Like you haven't been, spending time with friends and family as much as you would have, and then now you're like prioritizing?
That's an interesting question. That's an interesting angle to look at. That could be yes, and also I think it comes to a certain age where you appreciate it more because you realize, unfortunately, our parents get older. I lost my dad over 10 years ago, and my mom is, her health is not the greatest, but she's a warrior. And you just realize that you do not have as much time as you wish you could have. And nowadays, even the age doesn't really make a difference because there's so many young people pass. So it's like you really don't know if today is your last day or what's going to happen to you.
And I think that's the key to enjoying life and enjoying moments is if you're here, let's be here, let's
Yeah.
be present. It's very difficult to do, but if we can intentionally bring ourselves to this moment, even as I'm sitting here and I'm feeling all these anxiousness, right? But I keep going back to your voice, and I keep reminding myself, go back, like be present, hear her, because it's very easy for your brain to just take off and just
Yes.
wander off. And next thing you know, you've missed out this whole event. I was here, but I didn't enjoy it because
Hmm.
my mind was elsewhere, and I was worried about this, and I was worried about the call that I was about to get. So yeah, it's wonderful to be able to come back to the present moment and enjoy the moment,
Yes,
right?
100%. And I guess that's where I find my self-care
Yeah. Okay.
more. It just feeds my soul. It just feeds my soul. It's really
And
interesting.
that's what matters,
Yeah,
right? Whatever feeds our
100%.
soul.
Yes.
So, what sets Anagata loans apart from other mortgage providers?
We thrive in being and working with integrity, honesty, and we're extremely transparent. And when we take a file, we take a transaction and we take it all the way to the finish line.
Mhm. When you say transparency, what does that entail?
I sit down with every single borrower that comes into our office for pre-qualification, and I fully pre-approve them. I sit down, I look at their financials, I
Mm,
look at all their income docs. We strategize as far as what they're planning on doing. Either they're a first-time buyer or investor, and I lay out the whole plan and what the plan is and what the steps are. So they leave my office. I always say when you come in, you knew little about mortgage, but you leave my office knowing a lot more than whatever you came in with. So they already know what to expect and what the steps are, and it's transparent process.
okay. And what are some of the services that you're able to cover? What else do you guys, what services do you provide?
Well, I do a lot of financial advice that when the client comes in, which a lot of people tell me you should start charging people for the amount of information you give, but I'm like, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. But we cover mortgage and commercial real estate from A to Z. We're approved with over 179 different investors. We're a direct lender. And so we have a lot of options. There's not a single loan out there that we cannot do,
That's wonderful.
but it just needs to be what's right for the borrower.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll have realtors or even the borrower call me and say, "Oh, I don't qualify for this," or "I have a client who doesn't have this." I'm like, "Listen,
You don't
let
know
me
that.
sit down with the client, let me talk to them." 95% of the time or more, any stated loan is actually a full doc loan.
Mm.
It's just the client doesn't even know about it, how to go about it because
Right.
they
It's
don't
like
know.
playing chess, right?
100%. 100%. That's what makes fun of it. Like
Yeah.
it's so much fun. Yeah.
I think that's the thrill that you get, right? Like, okay, no, we got to figure out how to get them approved.
Yes, yes. And it's not, people need to understand one thing that this is something that I've discussed with them as well, that it's not only one time here right now.
Hmm.
It's not, okay, you bought the property, great. Like there's so many things that come afterwards. What do you
Absolutely.
do with it? There's your taxes, there's this, and how do you tap into your equity? Are you planning on buying more? And you just
Hmm.
open up this whole perspective in front of their eyes, and they're like, oh my God, like we could do this, we could do that. Oh, really? And it's like, oh my God, we were taught, we knew this, we knew that. A client walks in, they're like, we want to put 20% down. I'm like, great, that's wonderful, but let's price it out with 20 and 10. And let's figure out what works for you better. And all of a sudden, their buying power from 900,000 went into 1.1 because they realized that, okay, with 10% down, the mortgage insurance is very low because I have a good credit score. I don't need to put additional 10% down
Yeah,
on
and
it.
so much comes to play when you do those numbers, right?
Yes.
You remove one thing, you add another, and then the
It's
whole,
all the numbers don't lie at the end of the day. When
yes.
you break it down and put it in front of them, that's what I do with stated transactions as well. I'm not a big fan of stated loans. I think they are robbing borrowers with the time and money.
But
And
if there's no other option, will you go with it?
I will, of
Yeah.
course, if there is no other option.
Yeah.
I will present all the options, and then if they at the end they decide to go with the stated route, obviously it's the most easiest loan to do.
Yeah.
It's the easiest thing to do. So it's, um, with my personality, I'm not a big fan of. It's weird. I like playing with things and just making something wonderful
Hmm.
out of it. It's fun.
And you want long-term clients. So you want them to come back to you for other transactions. It's not just one-time buy and that's it. You want them to come back for their investment properties, for, um, I don't know, there's so much out there that you can do if their finances are in order. So I love that you're prioritizing that and it's not just one-time transaction and then we forget about the client. Do you follow up with your clients? Do you have a system where you're always in, like, you're in touch with them?
I think majority of my clients are like we've over years become very good friends basically, and I am always in touch with them. I have clients that have been with me for 20 years about properties for their kids, for their soon to be grandkids at this
Yeah,
point,
I
and
love
so
that.
on. Yeah, we've it's more like a family kind of a thing, and their friends and their family. It's referral based basically everything,
Okay,
and
word of mouth.
a word of mouth. And I don't close a transaction in hoping for a referral. I never come to the table with that mindset because I always say people might not understand what you said to them, but they feel it. It's a feeling that people get. And I always tell them, like, listen to your intuition. Listen, after you leave my office, if you're shopping around between different mortgage planners, figure out what makes you feel comfortable to be that with that person. You know, don't look at, I'm like, don't pay attention to rates, don't pay attention to any of that stuff. Obviously, if they're overcharging you, and, focus on that, but also you have to be comfortable with that person. You have
Absolutely.
to,
You have,
because you're giving, and I tell this to my staff as well, and I'm like, you guys have to understand, there's some people out there who save for 30, 40 years to put a down payment
hmm,
to buy their first
yeah,
house. I'm like, you have to understand, they're so vulnerable. We look at everything. They can't hide anything from us. I know their finances. I know how much money they make. I know their credit score. Like they just like become naked and stand in front of you. You
yeah,
can't hide anything. So I'm like, we have to be extremely careful and extremely sensitive to the matter and understand that we're there to guide them through. Some clients understand things very quickly, some don't. Some need a little bit more help than the others, and that's exactly what we do. So I make sure that we guide them through it, and we're with them every step of the way.
my next question was, speaking of interest rates. Everybody was panicking when interest rates started to go up. Um, I mean, when the year changed, 2024 came in, the market really shifted, and we saw that. So, what do you say to people who are so confused with the noise out there, who are waiting for the crash and who are waiting for the interest rates to go down before purchasing a house? Like, it's almost like everything's on hold. They're waiting for something. What would you say to those people who are contemplating whether to buy now or wait?
Go back 3, 4 years. How much money have you lost by waiting?
Hmm. Yeah. luck.
Simple as that. Just go
Yeah.
back, look at yourself 3 to 4 years, and look at people that bought properties 3 to 4 years ago and
Hmm.
where they are now and where you are today.
They got 3 years of equity.
Yeah. And a lot of equity.
Yes.
And people ask me, they're like, "Oh, its market is gonna crash this." I'm like, I wish, I hope, I hope
Then we can reinvest in things that
reinvest
matter.
in things and make a lot of money. I'm like, trust me, especially with the social media nowadays and access to information and everything else. Um, I wish market will crash because a lot of my clients will become extremely rich.
Yes.
And I used to do short sales when nobody even knew what short sales were
Hmm.
back in early 2000s. So
Define short sales for our audience. What is a short sale, Anna?
we can't really do short sale
No,
nowadays
yeah.
because even though I did one about 7 years ago in Hollywood Hills, but back in the days, if the property has a significant damage, like I'm talking about like hundreds and thousands of damages, issues, and the market is not as what it used to be. This happened after 2008. Obviously, the whole thing started booming. Um, you're able to sell the property for less than whatever it's worth with the approval of the bank, basically. And then obviously there's different process and steps that takes you to get there.
Right.
Um, so if market crashes, that's what we're looking at basically. And honestly, again, I'm telling you, I hope it does because
What will
I
you invest in?
just
More
buying
real estate.
more real estate. Just buying more real estate. Look at people that were buying in 2009 and 2010,
Mhm.
2011. They've made over $1 million in equity today.
Yeah, people plan for those
Yeah,
days,
yeah.
right? They put away just in case
Just in
when the
case and
market.
waiting for it to and a mini crash, you want to call it,
Yeah.
happened last year when the rates went up.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell everybody it's an ideal time to purchase because we started noticing a lot of purchase transactions with my clients
Okay.
that I pushed them on like this is the time to buy. A lot of them sellers were giving out a lot of credits, big
Mm-hmm.
buy downs, lowering the purchase prices, doing a lot of credits for repairs and so on because they were scared
Yes.
too.
Yes.
They thought
Yes. You had a lot of room for leverage.
yes, but now very quickly, beginning of January, the
Yes.
market switched
Oh yeah,
to seller's market
completely.
again.
We have
Yeah,
multiple offers on properties, which
yeah.
is crazy. It's like, okay, we're back.
I
We're back
know,
in
I know.
business.
So that's why, like, I think a lot of people miss the boat on that too,
Yeah.
hoping for a lower interest rate, and they're chasing 1.5 to 2% interest rates.
Ugh,
When I keep telling people when that happens, that means we're not doing well.
right.
So I'm like,
It's
don't,
almost unnatural to be in that 2%, 1%, right?
yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
doesn't make
And a
sense.
lot of people are stuck because of that. Now they're afraid to sell
Hmm.
and
They're
they're
sitting
like,
on,
they're sitting on it. But then they're also sitting on a lot of investment that they're missing out on because they're so attached to the rate.
right.
When people understand the game, which I try to, majority of my clients understand because I explain this to them. When they become my client, like first,
Yeah.
second time, third time, and so on, they know the game. They understand how this thing
How to use
works,
that money that you
how to
have.
use it and how to not to be afraid of it. I think it's more important than anything
Hmm.
else, not
Hmm.
to be afraid of it. And again, if market crashes, you know who to call. You're going to be perfectly
Anacara.
fine. Yeah,
I
you'll
love
be
it.
perfectly fine. So it's, I personally, I hope he does. Obviously, a lot of people are going to suffer
Scared of
from
it.
it, which is not okay. But as far as sitting and waiting for you not to buy because the market is going to crash,
Hmm.
no. It's the worst idea ever. I was at a birthday party over the weekend, one of my friend's son's birthday, and one of our other girlfriends that I haven't seen in a while, she goes, Anna, she's like, I bought my house 4 years ago, and everybody was telling me, don't buy, market
Hmm.
is crashing. It's like, I'm so glad that I did
Yeah.
because for a year I have so much equity in my house. I'm like, yeah, exactly. It's like, and you know what's funny? The people who were telling me not to buy it were the people who actually owned homes.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
yeah, unfortunately, it's always the case.
It is. It's always
So,
the case. Pre-qualification and pre-approval process.
mhm.
I don't like showing houses unless they are pre-approved, or
Mm-hmm.
at least for them to go see a lender, sit down and kind of do a little bit of those numbers, because they don't know where their purchase power is, right? They don't know. So here they are looking at homes that are above their budget, and then once they find out where they need to be
Mm-hmm.
in that number, it's a lot of disappointment and heartache, because now they're not settling for anything. They're not liking the homes that are seeing because it's in the budget that they're supposed to be in. So, but a lot of people are afraid to go sit down with the lender. I don't know why. It's so intimidating for them. They think it's that vulnerability where they have to bring everything
Mm-hmm.
out, I think. I think in a competitive market, and we are heading there, it's almost like I want to say, no, 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 don't get pre qualification, go get pre approval to be more competitive. Can you kind of define what each one is, and is it better to just do a pre-approval process instead of pre-qualification process? Does that make
I
sense?
only do pre-approvals. I don't do
Okay.
pre-qualifications. I think it's a waste of my time, waste of the borrower's time, and waste of the realtor's time.
Mm-hmm.
What I do if somebody calls in see, here's the thing, pre-qualification and pre-approval. Pre-qualification, a borrower can call you over the phone
Mm-hmm.
and tell you this is how much money they're making, this is what their credit score is, what can you do for them? That's waste of time for
Right.
me because 99.9% of the time their income is incorrect.
Mm.
Their credit is not what they say it is, okay? And the numbers or whatever they gave you is incorrect. But when they come in, I always tell them I have a need list. When they make an appointment, I have a need list. I do Zoom depending on how
Yeah.
they're comfortable with, or they come in person. It takes about 45 minutes. I review everything. I would not sit down with them. I would not give them a pre-approval unless I know for a fact I reviewed their taxes, reviewed their income. I understand because when they come sit down, you talk to them in real life, you get to understand their questions that I ask, and you start, digging deeper, and you realize, okay, this person doesn't even qualify. I don't think they should even buy a
Mm-hmm.
house at this time because
Mm-hmm.
I had one client one time who was getting a personal loan to put down payment. I'm like, you should
Mm.
not be buying a house. And they were newlyweds too. I'm like, you should not be buying a house right now.
Okay.
Especially if you're going to borrow money to put a down payment you don't even have. What's going to happen if you don't make the payments on the borrowed money? And,
Right.
it just becomes a mess basically. So it's really, really important. So I think it's a waste of time to look for properties. It's a waste of time to just get
Absolutely.
pre qualification.
Yeah, it's almost like nothing.
It's nothing, and
It's
that's why when
nothing.
they ask for DUs, I go, okay, like come on, like any realtor, and no offense, I don't know if you
Yeah.
asked before or not, but any realtor that asks for a DU or an LP approval, that means that they don't know what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
because I could put anything I want to in the DU
Yeah.
and get you a DU approval. You would not even know if the borrower's income is correct or not, if the employment is correct or
Right.
not. You would not even know. Okay, so by just asking that is just okay, fine, like come on.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of time, waste of everything. I know ethically, like I'm not supposed to do that,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm pretty sure knowing in our industry what
Industry.
people
It
do,
happens.
it happens that they could just write that just to give it to, just for you to say, okay,
Okay,
you have a
so
DU approval.
best way to go about it is go sit down with the lender, get pre-approved, and you'll
100%.
be more competitive in your offers.
Not only competitive, I think it's more the fact that you'll know exactly what you could afford and you cannot afford. So there's no surprises at the end.
That plus you're competitive because now you know what kind of offer to write, right? Where
Yeah.
your contingencies are going to be shorter, and or maybe you can remove a loan contingency because you got that covered, because you know 100%. I sat down with them, I did the numbers, I
Yes.
know
Mm-hmm.
they're good to go.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it would definitely help to be more competitive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Um, so working with first-time home buyers, what are some common misconceptions, or financial mistakes that you see? Yeah,
There is a common misconception in regards to first-time home buyers, because everybody talks about, oh, first-time buyers, first-time buyers. We have this special program for you, that special
yeah.
program for you. Anybody that hasn't purchased in the last 3 years is considered a first-time buyer. When
Mm-hmm.
they come and
Good
sit
point.
down to me, they ask me, they're like, oh, aren't there any special programs for first-time buyers? And when I give them that first sentence, they're like, what? I'm like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So the misconception number one is they think there's some kind of a special
Treatment.
treatment or a special potion or whatever you want to call it for them, that it just makes everything disappear just because they're a first-time buyer. It doesn't exist. That's
Mm,
not how it works. And the other thing is that, oh, you need to have 20% down.
Yeah.
It's a must, which in reality it's not. And mortgage insurance, the PMI has gotten so cheap, but not a lot of lenders have access to it
Why not?
because you have to, with wholesale lending, what it is, there's depending on your rankings, the different investors give you incentives. And mortgage insurance is one of them. If your ranking is higher with them, you get much more better incentive in
Okay.
certain areas and so on. So you're able to give lower mortgage insurances. And so and also a lot of people, when they go stated route or they go FHA, or they don't do the actual, like the regular good loans, basically, let's just put it that way, the borrower gets hit with the higher mortgage insurance because those are much riskier loans, kind of a deal. Okay, so they don't know the difference between the two either. See, with FHA, yeah, your rate might be lower, but then you have upfront and back end mortgage insurances that a lot of people don't know about.
Right. And gets lost in the translation
Yeah, yes,
translation.
somehow
We
everybody
don't talk
misses that
about that.
portion. Yes.
Yes.
So it's, again, when you sit down, I personally sit down with them and I break everything down to them and I'm like, okay, this is what it is. That's like, give them options. I'm like, you pick. They're like, okay, if this makes more sense. I'm like, obviously it does.
So
So
the borrower, I think commonly the borrower always worries about the interest rate, right? That's all they care about. So
mhm.
what's the interest rate? Okay, we're good. The rest they don't know, they don't ask, right?
Because that's what everybody talks about. And I
The
always tell
focus
them
is the interest
otherwise.
rate.
I always tell them, don't focus on the rate. Focus on what you can afford now, what's comfortable for you, because that rate, you could always adjust to it. And then also owning a house, in our culture, the understanding of owning a house, it's been like, oh, like I have to like pass it down to my
Right.
kids, to my
I don't
grandkids.
sell it, it
I don't
stays.
sell it, it stays, or I don't borrow against it. I have to pay it off, and so on. This is another conversation that I have with a lot of first-time
Yes.
buyers, is I have to explain to them that, in this country, and you in the United States, it's a little different. You have to use it as a business. You have to look at it, what it does, what it can do for you, what it can bring for you, and what it takes from you.
Yes.
So if, refinance, average person touches their mortgage 5 to 7 years into it. So if you long-term planning, like if you're going to end up touching this thing, is it worth paying that much money for the rate just because for you to say, oh my God, I have
I
this,
have a house.
this is the rate that I have. And then also a lot of loan officers, which is again unfortunate, but it is what it is, we got to talk about it, is they give them a rate. It could be an 8% or a quarter higher or lower, and they don't tell them the difference on the monthly payment.
Okay.
They just say, oh, somebody's giving me, let's say, for example, 6.25% rate. They're like, oh, I could give you better. I could give you 6.125 with the same with the higher origination fee, but I'm giving you a better rate. So the client is focused on the rate versus trying to understand how much money the difference is on monthly basis and how much they're paying for. Sometimes when you do the math, you realize you're paying a lot more than whatever you're getting.
Yeah.
So again, I always break it down for them, like, don't focus on the rate, focus on what's the difference between 6.125 and 6.25. What are you paying for it? Okay. If whatever you're paying for it doesn't break even in a year or two, it's not worth it. Okay. Because we know the market situation. We're going to end up refinancing in a year or so.
Right.
All right. So what's the point of paying you extra cost right now that you're going to end up touching it again after a year? A lot of loan officers don't do that because
Yeah.
they're pre-planning another refi down the line for them. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
With that
and I
intention,
had
right?
a lot of real loan officers. I actually talked to a couple of them, and I was like, "Come on, that's unethical. Whatever you're doing, it's messed up." I'm like, "Don't do that."
You call them out like
Yeah,
that?
I call them out. I do, and they would give them a 1/4% higher rate at closing, and then 4 months down the line, they'll call them, "Oh, we could get you 1/4% better," and obviously because they're so focused on the rate,
Yeah.
they will go through the refi process. They would intentionally give them a higher rate in order for
Just
them
so
to have
have
another
them come
refinance.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah. With that
yeah,
intention.
which is not okay. Stuff
Yeah.
like that, like, yeah, no, you don't
And
do
you
stuff
won't do
like
it.
that.
You won't
No,
oblige.
no, 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 no. So,
Okay, so when it comes to financial planning and investments, what aspects do you believe are frequently overlooked or underestimated when it comes to investing?
um, Well, a lot of people think investing is has to do with stocks, I think.
No.
For me personally, investing is real estate. And one thing, see, with me, I always try to dissect
Mm-hmm.
any complicated topic that we have in our industry
Yeah.
and present him in a very, very simple and basic language.
That's
So
very good.
because that's the only way people will understand
Right.
you.
Like explain to me like I'm a fifth grader or
Yeah, it's
right?
not nothing to offend
Basically.
anybody.
No.
It's not done for that purpose. It's just that people don't speak the same language as we
No.
do, and I personally don't expect them to do that. So what I any subject, any topic, any matter when it comes down to finances and investing and so on, I just ask them a simple question. Show me one rich person that you know of and give me their portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
What does it consist of?
A lot of real estate.
Yes. So I'm like that or that right there, they just stop. They're
Yes.
like, okay. I'm like, you make money from that, and then as you I'm like, if you're trying to invest in real estate and for it to have like positive cash flow income coming from your rental property, you have to give yourself about, I think, good 10 years
Mm-hmm.
in order for you to see the cash flow coming in.
Obviously, yeah, it's a long-term investment.
And after that, take that cash. If you're happy with whatever you have at that moment, take the cash, invest more, and then take a portion of it, invest in the other things,
Mm-hmm.
which will be stocks, this and that, but understand what you're investing into. And I personally think when you invest in stocks, and crypto was
Oh,
crazy
yeah, a thing.
because a couple of years and so on, I think you're supposed to use money for use the portion of the money from your assets is that you're not afraid to lose. If
Mm-hmm.
it goes away, you're not going to be like,
Right.
oh my God, that's it. I lost everything. That's the
Yes.
only time I think you
You play
invest.
around in that
Yes,
world.
yes. Other than that, I don't think there's any other investment safer than
Real
comes
estate.
down to real estate. So
What advice would you give to parents who want to do something for their kids? Like a you know how like in our culture they say, I think I should buy a house for my son or my
uh-huh.
daughter and like let them enjoy it or let that be a foundation. Um, what do you think would be the best way to go about that?
I think one of them will be is to make sure that they have life insurance,
Mm-hmm.
cash accumulating one, which all of my kids, whenever I talk about things, there's
Yeah.
things that I do personally as well. All my kids have it. I have it as well. And also, I think buy a small condo,
Mm-hmm.
buy something for them, very young age when they're just barely starting. Buy it and just rent it out. Let it just be there. Let it
Right.
cover itself. Even if you're putting some money out of your pocket in the beginning, let it be.
Mm-hmm.
But down the line, and teach them very young as far as what it is to invest in. My daughter is not so great in the investment portion of it, but my son Miles is. He's very, very intentional where
Mm-hmm.
things go and how much interest he's making on his money. And
Okay.
he fights with his sister for, spending her birthday gifts and all that stuff. Like he literally he brings the cash, like when they give you cash for your birthday, he's like, Mom, put it in my
Put
account.
it in this account.
Yeah, put it in my account. And he asked me about his interest, how much money he made this
Yeah.
month, and so on. So I think it's very important for them to learn very young age. And as a parent, I think it's important to start early, start very early.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you don't need a lot of money in order for you to do that. With the $50,000, $60,000 max, you'll be able to buy him a rental property. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be. See, everybody thinks like your first home needs to be this like
Right. It's just your
big,
first home,
huge. It's
like
your
people.
first home, like for a couple of years. Just get
Yes.
it, be done with it. Just move in there. If you want to live in it, great. Move in there for a couple of years, and then take that and get something else, and just stepping. Like
Yeah.
you don't just overnight live in a 10,000 square feet mansion.
Absolutely.
That's
You
not
gotta,
how it
you're not
works.
gonna be able
Yeah,
to handle that. Let's start small,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Even people who win the lottery, they don't even
That's why they lose
because
it. There's a
that's how yeah,
statistics.
because they're not able to. They don't know how to
Maintain
manage it.
that.
Yeah, they don't know how to manage it.
Yeah.
It's
It
one thing
comes
to make a
easy, it goes
million, it's
easy.
another thing to keep a million. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's the two different. That's another thing I think in our culture, especially with kids too. In our culture, there's a misconception in regards to, oh, like, he's a millionaire, or, somebody that has million bucks and somebody that maintains having that
Yeah.
million. There's the difference between the
Do you
two.
think we do too much for our kids? This generation of parenting, like
Yes.
we give too
Yes,
much.
100%. And I'm guilty of that. And I
Yeah.
catch myself a lot of times. And that's where the guilt comes in,
Hmm.
as especially for a
Like,
working
shoot,
mom.
I shouldn't have.
Yeah, especially for a working mom, you're like, okay,
Yes,
like
you
let me just take
buy.
care of this. Yeah, let me just take care of that. But then you realize, okay, no, this is not like last weekend birthday party. My boys are not behaving. This past 2 weeks, they've been like bickering at each other
Hmm.
nonstop, and they really like got to me yesterday. I was like, you know what? You guys are not coming to a birthday party.
Oh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
know. I didn't
And you
take
didn't
them.
take them?
No, I
Oh,
didn't. I
wow.
went by
And it's a
myself.
kid's birthday party.
Kid's birthday party. I went by myself, and I was taking photos, and I made
Yeah.
sure that Sophie and
How
Ron
fun
was
it
showing.
was.
Yeah, 100%. And they
Yeah.
stayed home. They cleaned, and they were home all day long, and they knew exactly where I was and what I
Mom
was doing.
means business. When she says something, she follows through.
You have to. You have to. There's no other
Yeah,
way
I
to go
think
about it.
lately I'm realizing a lot of parents are just weak. They feel guilty to say no and to create these boundaries. Um, but I think it's good for them. I think they thrive. They might not like it when you say no to them, but they'll be okay and they are okay. But at least they know you mean it, and next time they won't mess with you.
100%. 100% with
They
you on
won't
that.
mess
Yeah.
with you.
No.
So, given your transition from being a single mom, building your own company, I'm just curious to find out where does Ron fit in all of this? Did I pronounce his name wrong? Ron?
Yes, Ron.
Yes. Because I know when you're so used to being so independent and then another man comes into your life and suddenly the power roles change. So, where does he fit in all of this, professionally speaking?
See, here's the thing about there's a misconception, I think, in regards to working women in general. Like they call it boss. What was it called? Boss.
Boss ladies?
Yeah, something like that. Which
Boss moms?
yeah,
Boss ladies?
like I,
Yeah.
it really like to me, I'm not into any of that stuff.
The feminism right now that's going on,
Yeah,
or
I'm not. No, I personally, I think everybody needs to have their own role and understanding. I personally don't want to be a man. I'm only becoming a man if the man next to me is stepping down from their role and I have to step in. Okay, and to me, that's not a plus. I think that's a minus, and I want to be in dominating in my feminine side of things versus my masculine side. And also, there's a very big misconception when it comes down to when you're a female, you're running your own business, and you're, decision maker. Everybody thinks that you're the same type at the house.
right? Your
Reality
roles.
is not.
Okay.
And I've never been that type. And I always like the fact that, my husband, my partner in life, has the control over whatever needs to control on his side. I'm like that at work, but on our personal side of things, I'm not. I want him to make decisions, one less decision for me to make. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
there's so many fires that we put out during the day. When it comes down to our personal side of things and our household, I want him to do all that. Obviously it's a plus when your wife knows a thing or two. It's always a plus, but yeah, there's misconception in regards to that dynamic. But as far as Ron and I, it's crazy how we just completely complete each other. And I personally never experienced the fact when they say you marry your best friend, and I'm lucky enough to be able to experience that now in my life. And I never had that before as far as having the friendship between a husband and wife. But now I do, and we just understand each other on a different level. He plays his role in the business side, he's more outside, he's more, focused on our, on the investment side of things that we do, on the real estate aspect of it, the flips and so on. And I do everything else in house. Basically, I hold the house down on the in-house stuff, versus him is his on the external stuff of things. And we take care of each other, we take care of our own things, and then we just come together basically. I think
Okay.
that's
So
how our dynamic works.
you do the inside, he does the outside, like basically, and that completes. It's like that's where the balance is. Maybe here's where we can say balance works in
Yeah.
this case.
Yeah, in this case, that works, but also each we always pay attention to who
Help each
needs a little
other.
bit more help here or help there. There are days that, he needs to step in a little on my end of things and vice versa.
Yeah.
So we always, you know,
Help each other
help
out.
each other
That's
out. Yeah.
wonderful. That's
So,
wonderful to have a partner to walk, to share life with. I don't like it when they say, "Oh, he's my half." I think we're whole people. We're
yes,
both wholes,
yes,
and it's just we share a life together, and that life needs to be shared. And if there's a friendship, even wonderful.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's in for Anna in like 5 years from now? What are your plans? Where do you see yourself?
It's so crazy with plans because you make plans and then God has completely other plans for you. So it's like, with Ron, perfect example, he walked into my life out of nowhere. Yeah, and everything happened so quickly. It was like, okay, like, never in a million years would I even think about, remarrying, or finding somebody that a partner in my life that I always wanted, basically, and just happening out of nowhere. But as far as if everything goes as
Planned.
planned, um, we want to have more kids, obviously.
Okay.
So looking forward to that, God willing. And I just want to, build our business more as far as the mortgage side of things go. And I want to be more teaching
Mm-hmm.
and
Teaching how?
teaching, meaning mortgage side of things, investing, and producing actual good quality loan officers out there
Okay,
because,
so training.
training, yeah, training and just focusing on that and more public speaking and sharing my journey and life story because from more and more I talk to people, more and more I realize like there is a lot to share because to
Mm-hmm.
me that's norm. That's what it's my life, it's norm for me. But then when people hear glimpse here and there, they're like, oh my God, you
Right.
have to talk
Different
about this,
perspective.
different perspective, like you have to talk about this, you have to share this. And then you have a lot of people through social media and so on, they're like, oh, you inspired me to do this.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, even marrying with 3 kids in
It's
Armenia,
possible.
it is
Yes.
possible, especially in our community. It's like like a taboo kind of a
Right.
thing.
You're done.
Yeah, I like, you're done. I'm like, that's not how life works. Like,
Right.
just because I have 3 kids, that doesn't mean, you
I'm
know,
doomed.
yeah, like, no, that's not how it is. And I think it's really bad decision to stay in a marriage that doesn't work, not only
Mm-hmm.
for yourself, but for your kids as well, versus to take the initiative and say, you know what, this doesn't work because I don't want my kids to be growing up in this and thinking that this is normal.
Right. This is okay.
And that was my turning point for me personally. I was like, no, this is not going to happen. I want them to know their mom on this way and their dad this way, but it's just that, we just doesn't work. So I don't want them to
Right.
be in that environment. And it takes a lot. It was very difficult for me with 3 kids and so on to just kind of take that step. But you know, knowing where my kids were and now where they are, they're in a much healthier and stable place. So yeah, everything worked out just fine.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm
Yeah,
so glad it worked out.
thank
And you
you.
can be a great example to many, many women out there.
And I think one of the other things is just to focus on yourself and your family
Mm-hmm.
and not focus on the external things.
Absolutely.
So it's just focusing on yourself. And that's where I just took the time. I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. It's whatever works for the kids, whatever's best for them. And we
Mm-hmm.
just have to make it happen, basically. And then just God had other plans for me. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Okay, so just to lighten things up and before we close, if you could travel back in time to your teenage years, what advice would you give yourself?
Um, that it's gonna be okay. That it's gonna be okay. And it is, um, don't worry, basically. And I wish I could have spent more time with my dad. Yeah, it's one of the things. So,
Don't take them for granted, those moments, right? If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
ooh, I don't want to say read people's minds, even though I'm fascinated by that. I'm just fascinated by people. I love observing people. Um, Superpower. See, interesting. I think I would probably be not to get tired
Okay, so infinite
physically.
energy,
Yeah.
infinite energy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything else, I think, is just you know, I'm a very strong believer in manifesting anything you want in your life, and as long as it comes from whatever you do comes from a being pure-hearted, and not,
It'll
you know,
find you.
it will find you. Whatever is yours, it will find you. You just have to believe it and let things go. That's one of the biggest challenges and lessons that I've learned in my life. That you just have to certain things, you just have to
Hmm.
let it go
Yeah.
and let time and you know let God figure it out.
Surrender.
Yeah.
Sometimes just let it be, surrender it, it'll find it. What is the last book you read or movie you watched that you couldn't put down?
Uh, it's funny in regards to books. I was talking to a friend of mine. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm at a birthday party yesterday," and she's like, "Okay, let me know when you're done because we had a lunch meeting." And then she's like, I'm just reading a book right now and just like cuddled up in my PJs and reading a book." I'm like, I miss those days because for whatever reason, this past 6, 7 years, I can't read a book.
Mm-hmm.
My
I'm with you,
mind,
girl.
my mind just goes
Yeah.
everywhere, or I fall asleep.
Yeah.
So I have to listen to things. I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot.
Same. I love it.
That's my like when I put makeup on, when I'm in a shower, like the thing is on,
Yeah.
and
It's almost like you don't want to miss a moment, right? No, I could use this time to hear something,
yeah,
to learn
100%. But
something.
I think that's tiring too. I caught myself.
It
I'm like,
is.
okay, I need to listen a little bit of more
It's a
music.
lot of noise.
It's a lot of noise, and you don't realize it while you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but I listen to a lot of podcasts. I got Patrick's book, but I bought a I love hard copy
Yeah, me
books. I
too.
love it.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't read it,
Something
so
about that.
I downloaded it on Audible. So I'm
Yeah.
just gonna like I'm listening to it in a car while here and there between phone
Yeah.
calls and
Same
so
chapter
on.
probably 5 times,
Yeah,
right?
because
Because
yeah,
just
because
yeah.
it's that refocus thing. I need to go
Yes.
back to hiking because that helped me a lot with refocusing,
Okay.
which was a lot of
And that'll be your self-care routine maybe,
yes,
right?
yes, some days, but it's really hard to wake up some days. Even though Charlie is our rooster in our household. He wakes up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in
Oh
the
wow.
morning. Yeah,
That's early.
so it's like doesn't matter what day, school,
Mm-hmm.
no school, he just wakes up. So, but anyways, we'll figure it out.
And the most important question,
Uh huh.
Trump or Biden?
Trump, Trump,
There we go.
Trump.
I'm a Trump girl too.
There we go.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you
This
so
was so
much.
much
This was.
fun.
Can I ask you a question?
Go for it.
If you were a what color M&M would you be?
Oh, Eminem?
Uh huh.
I don't know. Red?
Right?
Red?
Okay. All right.
Is that a psychological
It
question?
is.
It
It
is.
is.
And what did that mean to you?
I ask that question when I hire people. You know that?
Really? And what does the red mean?
Uh, it's not so much about the color, but
Uh-huh.
it's about should I do this or no? Should I give the secrets out? Now,
Go
next
for
thing
it.
you know, people come
People
in.
are
I
saying,
know. What it is, it's a psychological question that you ask out of nowhere. And I
hmm.
could just randomly ask them about a question on their like
Yeah.
previous job, and then my next question will be that. And then I observe how quickly they're able to adapt to change,
Mm-hmm.
and if they're able to make a decision right there
Okay.
on the spot.
Diagnose me, please.
You were very
Dissect
quick.
me.
You were very quick because you asked that question back again because that gives you that you
A second to
subconsciously,
think.
yeah, you subconsciously do that because you want to think. And then, but you were able to answer. You'll be surprised how many people like they get like
Blank.
blanked out.
No, I was just trying to think of colors. I'm like, okay, what colors are there in
Well,
M&M?
your hair is red, so it's very like it's
Oh yeah,
yeah.
there you go.
So it's thing, but it's really interesting. Just ask around. I even ask my kids randomly.
Okay.
I asked them like, if you were a car, what car would you be?
Hmm.
And it's like very. I'm trying to figure out, and then you'll see how people like start dissecting their own thoughts in front of you. They're
Hmm.
like, oh, green. But why would I be green? No, I should not be
Yeah. Why
green.
did I say
Why
green?
did
Or
I
why?
say green? No, yellow. No, yellow means these. You'll be that shows right there. They're not able to make decision.
Yeah. Okay, so I could make decisions, guys.
Yes. Yes, you
Thank
can.
you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Anna
Thank
Jan.
you
It
so
was so
much.
much fun.
Likewise, John.